doing fine, thank you.
Good.
How are you, sir?
I sent out if you'll recall, a few months back, the commission approved VC3 to do an IT assessment for us. And I sent out the report that everyone's had a chance to read. And then I forwarded the suggested work order from VC3 to address what they found and to help us going forward should we choose to go that route. And so historically in the city, we've not put as much emphasis on IT as we frankly should have the last 5 years or so. And then when COVID hit, the demand on IT resources went way, way up. Things like electronic submittals and teleworking and streaming meetings, et cetera. So essentially we were neglecting IT and just fixing what broke as it broke to stay afloat, and then the demands went up significantly. So that gives us basically two options. One is in-house resources, or one is a company like DC3. Most cities our size have 1.5 to 2 dedicated IT professionals working on their IT services. Based on VC3's proposal, we have about $70,000 worth of work that needs to be done just to get to our annual starting point. And then they have a monthly maintenance fee that's a little bit over $20,000. If we were to have 2 in-house IT professionals, that would be essentially even money on what it would cost us to hire them and pay benefits. At 1.5, there's a slight cost savings. But what it appears has happened to a lot of our peers is they'll hire one, a year or 2 later, they'll have to hire a second to keep up with the demand and so on and so forth. So there's a risk. And then you have people on staff that you aren't going to just terminate to try contracting out. So all of the projects are laid out in the work order and in the IT report. I don't want to go through them because frankly, I'm not an IT expert, and so I will butcher an explanation on them outside of what's in the reports. If you have any specific.
So would this mean we would hire them, or the vendor would hire these people for us?
They would be our vendor, similar to how we manage the airport, or I'm sorry, the library. We would hire VC3, we'd write them a check. If something was broken, we'd send them an email and they'd fix it. They would handle our server hosting and that sort of thing. We'd still have to pay for our EPD connections and internet and that sort of thing. But they would handle all of our IT and our servers and fixing it when our emails don't work and that sort of thing.
But you're saying the difference of contracting out and hiring your own people, you might have to, as demand grows, hire more people. But would the cost go up the same at that rate as if you were contracting? I mean, their costs will go up too.
So VC3, this is a 5-year proposal with a monthly cost. So we would know what the cost was going to be for 5 years.
Okay.
If we hired in-house, what I would expect to happen is we'd bring one person on, 2 years later, we'd bring a second, and towards that 5-year mark, we'd be looking at a third. We would probably have a cost savings for a year or 2. We would not get near the project list completed. Their initial project list would be hit at a much, much greater rate because they would just come in, knock it all out over quarters, and then also manage the monthly.
So where is their project list? Is this I see the service and fees. Is it back further than that?
The one-time fees are listed as part of that project list in the monthlies. And then if you go on to, I think, page 6, you get into all the deliverables.
So if I was sitting here like I do every weekend, or every time my password changes, I cannot do it. I have to call Tom to get that changed. For whatever reason, when you normally click save or change password, it brings you up to a screen that says current password, future password. On the way I go through it through online, you cannot do it that way. Will that resolve that piece of it?
It should. We would move to Microsoft email hosting completely.
Okay.
And that would also resolve the issue where we can't email construction plan sets amongst ourselves or outside.
Well, thank you, because I have been sending emails of 3 to 7 megs, and it says I cannot send.
Too big. Yes. So that would be resolved as part of this.
Okay.
That was actually one of the issues I was pretty passionate about, because as you can imagine, not being able to email construction plan sets has been frustrating.
So does this include buying new PCs and servers and?
This moves to them hosting our servers in the cloud.
So we will not have a physical,
outside of what we are required to keep.
okay. So it will be backed up for a business continuation type plan. So if something, building burns down, we don't have to do the backup of tapes like we used to do. I don't know if we still do that.
Right, it would be hosted in 3 different server farms in 3 separate physical locations, significantly away from each other. Because right now, we keep our physical tape backups over at the airport,
Yep.
which is good in the case of a fire. It's not great in the case of tornadoes if we get one on each side of the
Or
river.
theft or whatever, yeah, fires and, okay.
But that's where we are. I'm still doing a little more research on in-house before fully bringing you a recommendation. I expect to bring one to you the second meeting in October, once we get a little more research. We did budget for an in-house position, but not quite, but we did not budget 2. I'm leaning towards going with the vendor on the, y'all fix it, get it handled, and we can get a little harder on them to get it up to speed quicker. But yeah, I do want to do a little more research.
Do we feel like their service commitment for what we need will be there?
We do, before we hired them for the initial assessment, their bread and butter is IT support services for municipalities. And so I called around and they were referenced well, especially cities our size. A city like Chattanooga has a huge in-house staff and can have an in-house staff. But cities our size, they seem to fit the niche pretty well.
So how much of a load will this take off Tom, from Tom's perspective?
It would take a fair amount, especially in where Tom coordinates with Lightfoot, that would go away. Tom would still be our front end on, hey, my password's not working, will you check it real quick? But it would decrease our demands on him and let him focus on his actual job as records.
Yep.
We frankly unfairly leaned on him for IT services outside of his core function. And this would take some of that burden off, and it would take a lot of the burden off on his coordination for Lightfoot.
Where are they located out of?
Columbia, South Carolina. They do a lot of telework as a firm. Actually, one of their vice presidents does live in Hamilton County, but just up the road off of Orango. But they're based out of Columbia. So
what's the, so 70,000 to do catch-up work to get us,
up to 0, and then 22 and a half a month for 5 years, so monthly maintenance.
does that include bringing the Windows 365 or whatever in?
Updating. And it also increases email security and things like that. Decreases the risk of getting locked out. All of that.
Communicating with other.
Oh,
Well, I will definitely go back through here and read it.
Okay.
It's a lot of information.
It is a ton of information. It is very specific to IT services.
So all the laptops we bought for COVID, will they come into play, getting upgraded or anything like that?
As needed or replaced when we get to the end of life.
And we know where those are?
I don't have a list of which ones are assigned.
Yeah. The only reason I asked, we did it such a rush basis because of COVID. I just,
Yes.
Didn't wanna
And that
lose
was
sight
part
of
the
that.
assessment. They went through and looked at various systems, who's using what operating system. So that's what I have on that. Moving on to the Airport Advisory Board. You have in front of you the revised documents. And this removed one of the members as one member selected by the one commissioner sitting on the board. It's really important to point out, this is an advisory only board. They have no budgetary authority. They'll meet with the director of airports monthly, and then quarterly, they'll submit to the city manager their suggestions to be used as suggestions on ways to improve operations, things that need to be fixed or could be done differently, or things that are going very well. But they have no budgetary authority, and because they report to the city manager, the meetings would not have to be advertised or minutes or that sort of thing.
I asked the people that are being advised on it, who selected them? Because
That-
I was wondering, I know John Turner would be a good advisor because he's been involved with the airport for over 40 years.
The people on here now are would be the one commissioner and then the 4 people who have felt passionately about making improvements at the airport. After that, it would be the city manager and director of airport operations that would select the individuals after their terms.
Yeah, I think this is, so I'm going to apologize. I did to one of the stakeholders who called me, but I'll be honest with you. Sometimes we go through things, and as I started hearing things about this board, it sounded so official and versus really, they have a key stake in the success of the airport. And I appreciate that. Now, I apologize because I really didn't read this very well. I just saw it was a board, and I figured we'd talk about it in meeting. So shame on me for that. But I think that it's really to provide guidance to our new assistant manager over there and to make sure that we can get things focused that really needs to be focused on, because they've got a lot of good input. And I told you I've met with a couple of them over the last couple of months, and I think that they have a passion, a burning passion. I don't disagree with Debbie, but I think they are current flyers out there, or at least I know one's not, but most of them are. And the one that's not, he is passionate to see the airport be successful. And he is wanting to maybe bring some more different types of planes in. And I understand that with his position and his business as well. So Ryan, I just wanted to say that just to get that cleared up. So
Thank you.
I think this is a good, the board is good. I think that only reason I had to ask about notes, because I really think that we've neglected the airport over time, and you don't have to respond to that, but I think that everything was told to us, everything's fine, but it's not fine, if you know what I mean.
These individuals would like to have this board to have a voice to help at the airport and to push for improvements that they feel like have been neglected historically.
Yeah. And I think this is a good way to start. I think the key part is they have no authority to spend money. They can make suggestions all day long, but they understand that, Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, it has to be worked into what's available.
Correct.
Anything you'd like to add, Ryan?
Yeah, so, just to reiterate, these individuals here, they've been a part of the airport for many, many years. They spend a lot of money at the airport, and they feel like they have not been able to have a platform to be heard. So this is kind of giving them that ability to do so. They have a lot of great suggestions. As I do my own personal flying and I see airports within, say, 50 miles from here that are of similar size, I can see that there's so many things these other airports have taken advantage of that we have not, that sets them apart from us. And going on to what we will next, discussing some of those improvements, that this board will help gather those ideas and kind of corral them where we can discuss them and try to implement them. So, but yeah, totally advisory only. And I think what we have here, meets the needs of what we're trying to do.
Yep. I know you will discuss it with the city manager and bring us whatever recommendations, so.
All righty. Moving on to number 3, it's a list of airport projects. They're broken up into 3 categories, and I'll try to go into a little bit more detail. The first is deferrals. It's deferred maintenance, things we've put off and kicked the can on. The second is growth-related needs, and then the third is proposed needs for sustained growth, which would come into what our vision of the airport is 10, 15 years in the future. As you know, the airport was in financial straits several years back, and then last year's budget, this year's budget, the first budgets in a long time that have given any significant money to start catching up on these deferred maintenance items. And we are working through that. But this is the list that we came up with pretty quickly. I'm sure if the board ends up being formed and after their first meeting, they will have a more inclusive list. So this is seen as a starting point, our first bite of the apple, if you will. And I'll ask Ryan to say a little more.
Yeah, so as he said, it is split into 3 separate things. The first being deferrals. This is really where we need to obviously start. One of the things that was brought to my attention from the FAA about 3 weeks ago was the fact that we do not have a current surveillance system, at least at the fuel pumps. They've had issues in this area of different kind of nefarious activity around fuel pumps at various airports. And I did get a call from one of the inspectors from Nashville to inquire if we had that here. I told him we currently did not. So I did try to price it out through Lightfoot to see what that would run. To put a surveillance system at the fuel pumps, one at the terminal building that overlooks the ramp, and then as well as on the runway to capture activity from either direction, they quoted us $12,000. So that right there was something that we need to have, but frankly, we just don't have the budgetary means to do so. But you know, as you can see, these are things that basically show how much need we have to repair some of these items. Much of the infrastructure that we currently have, it's stuck in the 70s. We have airport lighting that is on a banana peel, runway lights that are, some are dim, some are out completely that we cannot fix because of the way the line structure is in the ground. There is, you know, hangar buildings, as you've mentioned several times, that are in very bad shape. We have done patchwork as we can do so from various users that have asked us to do so, and we've done it. But obviously our budget is very limited. Much of that work will fall over into an additional fiscal year and beyond, just because we don't have the means to do so. So, you know, you can take a look at the list of deferrals there. Of course, going to the second page is those growth-related items. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, my observance of airports around us, Cleveland, Dalton, Dayton, places like that, that would be considered satellite airports for the Chattanooga market, they are able to capture an audience that we currently cannot, basically because we don't have the infrastructure to do so. They have the instrument approach. They have the AWAS, which is like digital weather, where they can see all that. They have better services, ground services, rental car services, fuel truck, stuff like that, where they can get that corporate traffic. So in that sense, Cleveland is eating our lunch because we just can't. Cleveland is our primary market that, you know, we're missing this from, and they're taking it away because they have, you know, what we don't. So, you know, those growth-related things is, you know, construct additional T-hanger, box hangers so we can service more customers, have a full-length taxiway, the instrument approach, as I mentioned there, as well as, you know, completing our full master plan as he stated, you know, for the next 10 to 15 years or so. And then the last page just shows those proposed needs to sustain the growth, is just making us look more aesthetically appealing. It's no secret the terminal building it looks old. It looks very 2000s, and you look everywhere else, they have very nice, new, fresh looking infrastructure. And that's where we ultimately need to focus efforts towards. That fuel truck has been a big item that is needed for that sustained growth. To when these jets and turboprops are able to come in here, they have full service fueling. We also need to overhaul our beacon pole, which is, it's, to my knowledge, it was installed in the 80s. Anytime we have a light that goes out, we have to climb I think it's 95 feet just to repair it. And it's a little extensive, it's a pain, quite honestly, to do that. They have now where it's like a telescopic, you can just lower it, replace it, and then raise it back up. Other airports in the area have that, we do not. We need to change our windsock pole. It looks old. Aircraft tug, again, going back to the fuel truck and capturing that corporate audience, is that we'll need an aircraft tug. Having community and overnight space, most every airport around here has that. We currently do not. Most of the time when those customers call to ask what we have to tell them we don't have that. We have to put them out on the ramp. It's kind of a first come, first serve availability. If we do have a hangar to put them in, usually we don't. And then on-site rental car services is kind of that last thing that a lot of airports have. They either have some kind of a satellite office of some sort where, Enterprise, Hertz, where these customers can get cars without having to be transported elsewhere to pick it up. So, from the list here, you can see there's just a lot of things that we need. It's no secret that we're limited on resources, but we are definitely trying to tackle these needs as fast as we possibly can.
So is there any opportunities to get a grant for the camera system?
I haven't looked into that. I was just pricing it out to see where we stood and then see, what our budget at the airport would allow for. And based off that $12,000 quote, there's just no way of doing it with what we have.
What typically happens with our TDOT grants, the 95.5 grants that are so nice, is the list and priority is given to us, and they work it in series. And so right now, it's the obstruction removal of trees that we've been working on for 2 years. So if they were to add something like the surveillance camera system to it, it would be multi-year. It wouldn't be $12,000 by the time we ran through their process to get that done. And that's kind of where we get hamstrung on some of those grants, is the process is 2, 3, 4 years to get it done.
What would you suggest? I know you're talking about that, but how we could get monies, or does the city have monies that they can pull, say for the 12,000 to get the surveillance?
So my thought process would be in next year's budget, as we come up with our capital needs out of the airport revenue, that would be one of our higher priorities.
So let me ask you this, because I know we can't take money from the city's budget because it's an enterprise fund, but overall, this is a city security project. Could it not be that piece of it, the 12,000, be included in the city budget? I know it's far-fetched, but
It's
I found this on the
actually,
web for security project.
interesting that you are asking that question. Michelle and I were talking today on some of the enterprise funds / general fund, and plan to discuss similar questions with the auditors this week when they're in.
yeah, because my thought is you got to keep the city safe, whether it's airport, the EDC, whoever it is, Imagination Station.
Something that can overlap.
I'm just wondering, because it is part of the overall, if somebody comes in and blows that up, it's not to the advantage of anybody, but.
Well, the other thing, if I can add too, is, with the surveillance system, it is a kind of a safety item. You have, worst case scenario, we have an accident. We have a video footage that they can review. From what I could tell, there's a lot of need for a surveillance system. So that's kind of why I was trying to price it out as priority to get it installed.
We'll follow up with the auditors this week, because we do need some clarification, especially as it relates to some of the federal dollars that are coming in to the general fund, but specifically listed for sewer projects as an example.
Yeah.
And so we're getting that clarification.
Are all of these airports that you're referring to in the area, are they municipal airports?
They are. They're city-owned, yes.
Okay. How are they doing financially with them? Do you have any idea?
That I don't know. Of course, there are airports around here that are included within the federal fund where they can receive federal funding. We don't. So that is part of, why we do have some difficulties over some of these other airports. But it just stresses the need that we need some kind of assistance, some kind of funding to complete what we need to do here.
Why do they get federal funding? We don't.
So there is a program, it's the NPIAS, it's National Plan for Integrated Airport Systems, and there's a variety of things that the airport has to meet in order to qualify for that. There's several things. One of the biggest things is that you have to be within 20, I believe it's 20 miles from the other nearest nippiest airport, which would be Chattanooga. So geographically, it disqualifies us where the airport is physically at. There's a swag in the runway, as you probably noticed. It's not flat. That swag in the runway is a disqualification. The terminal building to its proximity to the runway, it's too close. That is a disqualification. So there's a lot of challenges there that we just cannot qualify for to receive that.
Sorry, I asked.
Are these other airports newer that when they built them, they met all of these conditions? Or
So if you recall, Cleveland used to have Hardwick Field. That was the old Cleveland airport.
Uh-huh.
They built a newer airport, and I don't know if it was because of these specific reasons, but I'm very inclined to believe it probably was, that they put the new jetport much further east of town, so it is further away, where there's less obstructions. There's virtually no obstructions where they are, where they have much more freedom out there. Of course, our airport is right in between two mountain ridges, so that creates challenge. So there are, some challenges on that regard that are going to be tough to get around.
Did we not have a airport security system out there at one point?
As long as I've been there, I don't know of any.
I thought we bought one when Frank was out there after 9/11. I thought that was a requirement.
Apparently it's not being used.
I don't know of any, but there may have been some.
Or, 9/11 was 21 years ago, so it may have been functional for
A few
5 or
years.
10
Yeah.
years, and then,
Never got upgraded or fixed or replaced.
correct, it could have failed, and then we've changed staff a couple of times, and so.
My concern is that we're not up to par to where we should be
Yep.
with the airport. And so I think we need to do all we can do to look for like the grants. I understand the stipulations, but there's got to be monies out there somewhere that we can latch onto or overlap with something that would be legal. Okay. So I'm all for doing that. If there's some way we can come up and get with the 12,000 ASAP for the surveillance, because if our roads are main thoroughfares for trafficking, not just drugs, but even human trafficking, we need to know what's coming in and out of our airport for safety of Collegedale, safety for the people that are using the airport. We had the money, we just need to tear it down, build it all back up right. But we don't.
For the land.
Yeah. The land. But, and I have a question too about the hangars. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just thinking because I used to go up there all the time. I haven't been out there, but recently in the last 2 months, because I was looking at and noticed the deterioration. Okay. I thought some of the hangars were supposed to be built opposite from where they're at. I don't know if it's the north or the west. Like they're all, it seems to be on one long area. Would that be an interference of having some of the things done out there that needed to be?
There is some restriction to that, yes. The FAA, like 75 feet between building and like tie down or, such.
Yeah.
There could potentially be restriction there, yes.
That's what I was thinking.
We'll keep you apprised as we work through it and look for funding opportunities. So, Natalie, you have anything?
I just came by to hear about the IT.
Okay.
We put a lot of pressure on Tom at the library.
Chief Sapp?
Just a couple of things. Just want to let everybody, we get the vehicles ordered today. And I think I told y'all last week that they initially said probably February or March, but they actually said today that they'd probably have them, 3 Durangos, by the end of the year, which is certainly good news. And the one F-150, they think they might have one ready to go right now. So that one may be here very quickly. The Crino vote to purchase the second dog is actually on their commission agenda tonight. I talked to the chief deputy up there, so we should hear something this week. And lastly, just to let everyone know, we got a $11,000 grant through AAA to purchase DUI enforcement equipment. So glad we were able to get that and get some equipment out here for officers for DUI enforcement. So other than that, that's all I got.
Ryan?
And that is all that I have too.
Ms. Clark?
So, just real quick, we had our second annual Fairy Tale Fall Ball yesterday. We sold out of 100 tickets of both little princesses and princes. It was a great success yesterday, great collaboration between us, a local company, and our buddies over at the library helping us as well. And just 2 things that are coming up in the next month. This Thursday, we have Tunes on the Track, which will be making use of our little train stage out here. And we will have local artists that are either trying to get their name out, or we even have a little 12-year-old that she knows 3 songs on the piano and can sing, and we're giving her a chance to shine her light. So hopefully you guys can come out. We're just inviting everybody to come with chairs or blankets, come enjoy the weather and some music. And we should have the Kona Ice Truck and another food truck there as well. So it's just a nice little community thing.
What time is it again?
It's from 6 to 8 this Thursday. And then we are bringing back the Scarecrow Contest, which will be citywide. And there will be a release on that, I believe, Friday. And we'll start taking applications for submissions come October 3rd. So we're going to have those out in front of City Hall and the library again this year. And we're hoping to get more people involved than we did last year. And hopefully some of our departments will also get involved. So that's really all I got.
Michelle?
We have the auditors this week, Wednesday, Thursday, and also next week, Monday. So we're busy getting ready for them. And that's it.
Commissioner Hanson?
Nothing.
Commissioner Bacon?
What do we decide about a Christmas parade?
We have had limited to no community people wanting to help us with it. And so we're trying to step back and punt and see if we're going to handle it completely ourselves and see what interest we can drum up. But
Yeah, I understand, like, or something to have more than just, I like the tractor that we do up there. I like that too, but I think there needs to be some more, maybe some more stuff for children.
it was last year.
I want more. Okay,
How much more?
as much as we can afford, and get them in there in the community. I would love to have a parade. I know it's a headache, but it's a tradition in our community, and a lot of people have asked me about it. But I think if we had if we had something to other than just the tractors and them to come, and I know some of the children participate in that, but a lot more other activities or things that they can participate in, not just playing on the playground and jumping in the jumper things, but getting them involved and participating in more of a Christmas feel.
Okay. We're still working on it. And, we're trying to get it nailed down in the next couple of weeks. But so far, no other organizations have stepped up to really be involved.
Okay. What have we done to see about getting them involved?
We've reached out to them repeatedly, and so far, no one has stepped up to shoulder the burden,
Mhm.
or help shoulder the burden. And so that's why we actually talked about it this morning on getting it nailed down in the next couple of weeks on what we're going to do, because we need to get it planned and advertised
Yeah.
and that sort of thing.
So do you approach different organizations and say, we'd like to have, do you want to participate and
Correct. Samaritan Center would be a great example. Reached out to them and Steve Ray, et cetera, to see, do you want to be involved in the Christmas parade? And we need to get back to you.
Yeah.
And so it's,
Steve Ray gave it up.
Mhm.
You know,
He did.
it was just getting people that, I think it was, one time it was like $30 to put your float in, or $25, something like that. And different organizations contributed to that, like the Boy Scouts and all that. Of course, because of COVID, things have been limited.
COVID and insurance.
Yeah.
PEP does not like parades. So, but we're getting it nailed down this month and finding a path forward.
So,
Maybe have a
interesting.
North Pole or something.
Could we stop flights in and out of the airport for about 4 hours one day and have a Christmas parade out there? Charge $30 a float or whatever? Now,
Straight around the airport.
Yeah,
I built a North Pole, you know.
I'm just thinking outside the
I
box.
guess we could host drag races too. but I think the FAA is probably going to say something.
Or even include like a North Pole type thing, where you have activities and,
Yeah.
for whether it's like cookie bakes or the kids participating, you know, get some little elves.
We don't have enough parking
We
out
get
there
the-
anyways.
Get the police to dress up as elves or something, good cops, you know.
I'm just thinking outside the box for you, Ryan.
I'll speak for the chief. We did not budget elf costumes as part of uniform allowance this year. Not this year. Vice Mayor.
So I asked our chief to do a little investigation because I got a text message from, basically it's a mutual friend of ours, but he wanted to know I needed to get on top of having U-turns not be illegal anymore. And I said, well, I thought the state has an ordinance. Well, they do if it's divided highways. So the chief did some investigation, found out East Ridge, Red Bank, Saudi Daisy, Signal Mountain, Lookout Mountain, they all have city ordinances about U-turns. So number one, his theory was incorrect. And I asked him, I said, well, did you get a citation or something? He said, no. He said, I just want to make sure that citizens are not being stopped for this. And I appreciate that. But that being said, Chief went on to do some additional research for us. And from 9/22 of 17 to 9/22 of 2022, there's been only 9 improper turn violations and 8 warnings. So overall, it's not an issue, and I've shared this kind of feedback with him, but I appreciate the chief going through the additional process to get some details. You know, I'm sure it took a little time to get it, but it's just kind of we don't write a lot of those unless it's really traffic related, a crash or.
It's rarely enforced, and even like I explained in the email, that there's not a specific U-turn violation. So it would be written as an improper turn, but you can have other improper turns.
Yeah.
So out of the 9 improper turns, I mean, there's no way to really determine. I even went back and looked through the officer notes on the citation to see if maybe they labeled it as a U-turn, but they didn't. So, I mean, it could have been another type of improper turn, but, you know, like you said, 9 in 5 years, and 8 of those were warnings,
Yep.
rarely enforced unless it causes a traffic collision or creates a big hazard.
So I just thought I'd share that with you because you did put some research into it and it's good information to know it's not being abused or anything. So I think it was more, he likes to have a voice sometimes and I appreciate that. But I thought I would just share it since the chief did that research.
Right there on Reagan Road, when you're talking about Taco Bell.
Mhm.
If you're coming, say you're coming down the McDonald's going towards Ooltewah, and you get in that turning lane and it's kind of like a U-turn, but it's not exactly if you're trying to turn down on Reagan or to go, is that considered illegal?
You talking about on Lee Highway?
Yeah, you turn,
No, that wouldn't be considered legal. I mean, that's right outside of our jurisdiction anyway, if you're talking about being on Lee Highway.
yeah.
That's a divided highway, so it's,
Well, I'm gonna see if I'm getting in trouble or not.
no, you're good.
Not by us.
Because sometimes I miss the Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Very common.
Yeah, but it's actually not, when they planned that, the Reagan Road, it kind of put a little dimper in things right there because people can't really turn and go left unless you do a switch, you come around into that road for Reagan.
Two things on the airport run. You were talking about rental cars. I'm wondering if they could have like a electronic box, like some rental company, that they have 2 or 3 cars out there. So when somebody rents it, they get a code and put the code in, then get the key out and take off in their rental car.
It's a good idea.
So, yeah, one of the things I was going to check and see after I got that request is whether we could have some kind of like a satellite office where Enterprise could supply us a card, like you're saying there, or two. I know Gatlinburg does that. They have like an Enterprise office. It's like a satellite office where their desk clerks can organize that. So that was one of the things I'm going to call and see if I can find whoever is in charge of setting that up and seeing what the what they could suggest there. Because I agree. I think it would be a great idea to have that service here.
The other thing I had was thinking about raising money. So my gesture about the airport, I knew that was a no, but is there a way to have I don't know, like a thing at the Commons to raise money? And I'm thinking like, auctions or, people come in and bid out stuff to buy stuff, and all that money would go to the airport. We'd get donations of stuff, but
We can
I'm
look
just
into some-
trying to
Or
think,
even, they used to do open house.
even if it gets us $1,000,
Yeah,
it's $1,000
better than nothing,
closer
yeah,
to
absolutely.
what you need.
That might be, if we have the advisory board set up, one of the first topics we can
We
suggest.
can discuss. Okay.
And in a mix that, maybe we have, like we do at some of the fairs, you sell certain items and
The proceeds go for XYZ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's all I have.
Nothing else? We're adjourned.
Sir.
Thank you.